There's a certain vocabulary that you learn that has no name. It's a set of behaviors and understanding and just a way of being that only comes to you when you leave your home country and move to any other country. There are so many things you cannot understand about the immigrant experience until you become an immigrant. And on the other side of this, there is an excess of literature and books and movies and just content that paints one side of the difficulty of being an immigrant. And for many years, for me specifically 4 years, living in America, I've had to understand this vocabulary and realize that it's not something that can be taught. It's not something that you know intrinsically when you move. It's something that you experience. And I've shared some of these experiences: discovery of racism, understanding the economy, going through the loneliness of immigration. There are things that I thought I was done with, things that I thought I had successfully overcome, or at least understood to the point of not letting them affect my progression towards goals and making a life for myself. Even after my marriage ending and then having to redefine that journey, because where I thought a lot of things were in place, they had to be redefined. I thought I was done with this conversation. I thought I was done with the idea of talking about life as an immigrant. And to be honest, it got really boring. Talking about, oh yeah, I was born here, I moved here, here's why I moved, here's what happened, and here's who I am, here's what I'm working on. Like, you tell that story enough and it gets really, really boring. So before we get into today's video or audio, wherever you're listening to this, I have a poetry collection. If you haven't bought it yet, please do. It's a collection of poems that I read read is like the old English of write. Read poems between 2011 and 2018 actually. And I would really love your support on this. Not just because it's me, but because these poems contain, I guess for me, the essence of the time when I was a poet. Like, I literally have solidified my view of love and relationships and heartbreaks and struggles and many other kinds of relationships in this collection. So there's a hardback, a hardcover, and which I actually enjoyed. The design was done by a cool dude I met on Fiverr. You can see that there. Hopefully it zooms in. Come on, man. There you go. Diary of a Reckless Poet. So you have the hardback and you have the paperback. So go find it. Get it on Amazon. Let me know. Love to hear your thoughts. That's one. Two. This is an article that I just wrote. I'm feeling this. I have these feelings. That's why there's even no music in the background. I feel a lot. Like, some people have even called me in the past being like, I'm too sensitive. Like, it's a part of me that I've had to honestly repress. It's more of like, I've tried to understand it as I'm getting older. Like, how can this be useful? Because I don't think emotions are necessarily bad. Any of them. Anger, hate, sadness, like jealousy even. All these emotions are there to point out certain things. And so for me, because I feel these things very strongly, I have been blessed to be able to find a way to communicate that somewhat. And often I've failed terribly. But the past 3 days, I've felt a lot about a couple of things, which I cannot go into details for privacy reasons and just for personal reasons. I just can't. But today, there was a cascade of events that led me to the point where I was like, man, this thing sucks. Like, this whole being in America and not being able to do the things or speak to people or confront people directly, it sucks. Like, it really sucks. And I wrote this article. Which by the time you're watching this should have been posted. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But actually, no, it will be posted. So it's going to be in the description or the first comment you'll be able to read the article. Maybe the title will change by then. But it's called "The Worst Thing About Being Far From Home is the Helplessness." And the reason I wanted to bring this article and talk about this article and read this article like I did for the last time is because I want to start this conversation. I really want to start a conversation about what it's like to deal with things that don't have names, things that you have to these nuanced relationships when you are far from home, miles away from home, and the only thing you have is a phone, and trying to make an argument, trying to convince people to take action, trying to get people to believe that what you're saying is for their own good, you know? But yeah, so let's read the article. I haven't even read this. It is like a first draft, so it probably changed a lot. But I wanted to get this article out of the way because it contains a lot of those feelings. And my hope is that with these feelings, two groups of people. One, people who understand this will feel seen, like, yes, I get that. This is what I feel. And people who don't understand would begin to realize that there's a nuance, there's like layers to this whole immigrant thing. There are things that you would never get without traveling, things that you would never really understand if you haven't been in that position. And there's a kind of pain that you probably never feel until you are so far away from your loved ones that you get to discover these feelings. So let's get into it. The worst thing about being far from home is the helplessness. Subtitle: the struggle to fit into the new country is easy to note. Pain caused by the old? Not so much. And it's a quote. This must be what dread feels like. That's literally what I started this article with. It was the first line I wrote as, this must be what dread feels like, the feeling of dread. You know that moment when you catch yourself about to say something you've said so many times that you've now become aware that the person listening to you is sick of hearing it? I've thought that a lot since I started talking to new people, whether at work or in my new neighborhood, about moving to America. I've reached a point where that wonder of being new and the joy of sharing my experience feels not only bland, but unnecessary and pointless. I should have something better to say, I tell myself. How long will you be the immigrant? You know? Yet I find myself today, after 4 years of living in America, unsheathing the onion of this experience. I may have bored myself to death with my story of moving here, but the consequences of that move still echo. Even worse now, the true consequences of not being present in Cameroon expose me to the true limits of my impact on others. Impact here is not even close to what you think. It's not about changing lives or doing something worth celebrating or writing a book about my experiences. It's a more base quality. The ability to say something and have people consider it enough to listen and act in accordance. It's closer to what we often consider respect in African homes, even when what that is closer to is fear. For 4 years, I've maintained conversations with the people I love. Some have traveled to other countries, including the US. A majority have not. What has impact got to do with the pointlessness of my immigrant story, and why revive it now? Well, anyone who has been in this position would understand the utter helplessness that comes with a lack of physical presence when it matters. If you've ever screamed at your TV to a fictional character to try to stop them from getting into an accident or doing something stupid, then you know exactly what this helplessness feels like. And I never realized before today how the distance away from the people we love makes this so much worse. For the past 72 hours, I've considered going back, carrying all I have and returning to Cameroon. My marriage is kaput. There isn't anything keeping me here. Or is there? Is this personal conundrum, this acquited taste, acquired dreams, acquired lifestyle, coupled with the fear-mongering from those at home, and even the measured cautionary tales from those you'd consider level-headed. Le pays va mal, Kamga. Ça ne vaut pas la peine. Débrouille-toi seulement. The thought of leaving is flushed by the potential of life in America, by the ability to reinvent, adapt, make use of, and grow. Then the changing landscape of the American economy. See money printing. Gender dialogue. See woke feminism. Culture dissonance and an expanding gap between values and virtual virtues. Throw in a little meta and Dogecoin for good measure. To live in America alone is to accept long bouts. Actually, let me zoom that in now that I think about it. To live in America alone is to accept long bouts of loneliness that aren't natural or generally helpful. To combat this loneliness, we find ways to stay in touch with our families while plowing ahead to stay away from the troubles we never knew, such as racism, and surviving an economy which heavily relies on debt and economic mishaps. To live in America alone is to try to find happiness where we once had it, only to be alienated by our lack of understanding because you live in America now. You cannot understand. It is possible, however, to buy this impact. Literally. The more financial power you have, the more people listen to you. Woe to you if you're on a budget. Love and respect will be postponed to next month's salary. Actually, I like this line. If after you've overcome the disapproval, the disrespect, and you continue to forge ahead knowing you're on the right path, and they'll never truly understand, you will, and I pray you don't, you will come to head with the true issue that brings us here today. When you know a wrong decision is being made and you're too far off with too little impact to make a difference. It's this lack of impact, when it's most critical, that I think cements the true dread of being away from home. It's the moment when a decision that can change a life for the worse is taken and your opinion doesn't matter because you're in America. It's one thing to resign to fate when you realize those back home can't understand some things without experiencing them themselves. It's another when you know this isn't the time for debate or conviction, but a time for action. A part of me wants to argue that the fault remains with you, me, us, the immigrants, that we should be able to make our arguments and communicate no matter what. Another part of me is looking from the corner as the part above is searching through books for the right psychology hack. This part of me knows there's no way around the stubbornness of ignorance or the stupidity of the kind of pride that breeds from a lack of discernment and base common sense. This is where the dread rises. Watching via video call and Instagram stories how the people you love destroy themselves and each other while you're too far away to make a difference. Watching without the ability to change course. Watching with tears. Resigning to silence and meditation and prayer because common sense ran out and left the door ajar. How do you cope? How do the others cope then? This hurts more for people who feel the need to lead, people who have responsibilities, firstborn children, like me, husbands, wives, people who have received so much from family and want to give back but often aren't there yet, financially there. How do you watch someone you care for dive deep into the darkness and your screams to turn back are met with disdain and deflection into the line? How do you, miles away, convince someone who is set on hurting themselves as a way to spite you? How? The dread of waiting for the inevitable can only be assuaged, at least that's how I want to find solace, with prayer. When there's nothing you can do, you can pray that the path you've chosen should work. Pray fervently to God that you are wrong. Wouldn't you rather be wrong than to watch your truth come to life? I know I would. I'd rather be stupid and see my worst vision materialize. But as I wait and time's unavoidable music sings on, I can only pray and keep searching for how to regain and revive any kind of impact. For it is this trend that has allowed me and others to survive in this land. We didn't give up. We couldn't. We can't. Everything ends when we do. And until then, we won't. I pray you don't. So, probably get a gist of this, get a gist of what's going on. Maybe it's the idea that, people always see living in America as, oh yeah, you're in America, you're enjoying life, better internet, better everything. I don't think people see what happens when you're separated from your family physically. You might be in contact and talk and send letters, emails, whatever, but there's this physical component to communication that is so absent that now I get it. I feel that lack of being in the presence of someone and trying to get them to see where you're coming from. Because I think many people would agree, you probably would, maybe you won't, that a lot of communication is actually non-verbal. And it's something that I've had in my previous my marriage, I had a lot of difficulty with that aspect of nonverbal versus verbal, and I think people rely a lot on the verbal cues, like the words that are spoken, the things that are said, writing. Like there's so much about words that we are like, yeah, if you don't say it, it's not real. But I personally believed, and I still do, that it's about not just balance, but a lot of the communication happens non-verbally, because someone's twitch in the face can prompt you to ask a question that leads to more information. Someone's sneer, like snicker, like smile, even just slight sneeze could let you to see things that you didn't see before. And so I needed to put this out there, because I know I've said a lot of things to say nothing. But those who know, like if you're watching this and you know exactly what I'm talking about, which are like two people on earth, they know what is going on. And that's fine. Like that's for me, that's a fine line between being open about your issues on the internet and then choosing to share without necessarily, I don't know, giving too much information. But anyway, what I'm trying to make here is that if you have someone who is not home and they're trying to say something or communicate something, I hope this maybe gives you a glimpse of the fact that because they're not present with you in the same space, they have a harder time dealing with what you're dealing with, especially when they have a different vantage point where they can see the difficulty or they can see a solution that you are adamant to rejecting. And yeah, I just want to share that with you today. Let me know if you like this format of videos. I know it's different from the previous one where it was like all well lit and everything, but I could actually make more videos like this because it's so lazy. I love it. I just turn on my camera, film with I'm using Sparkle Cam to film this, and yeah. Read the article. Let me know what you think. Are you an immigrant? Have you experienced this? Are you not an immigrant? Do you have questions? I would love to hear your take. Go ahead and buy my book, man. Seriously, I wrote a book. Buy it. All right. I need the money. I need to have impact. If you've heard the thing, when you don't have money, people don't listen to you. So I don't know. I'm making this like I'll just see you in the next one. Thank you for watching, though. I'll see you in the next video. But in the meantime, you do your best. Let God take care of the rest. And remember that while there's life, there's hope. Yeah.